What's up, everyone? Just working on my mom's old Envoy here. We're going to diagnose and fix a noisy wheel bearing. So I just got it on the hoist. I'm going to fire it up, put it into four-wheel drive because it's a front wheel bearing, and we'll see if we can hear the noise just running it on the hoist. Fired up, 4 high, in the gear, and then we'll just listen. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Kind of growly, sounds like my mom described it as an airplane taking off. So I don't know if you guys can hear it on the mic, but we'll also lift it up and I'll show you a listening technique that you can diagnose a noisy bearing underneath. Alrighty, so we have the truck idling on the hoist, and we want to get as close to the wheel bearing as possible with screwdriver or pry bar. So I can put it right here on the knuckle, right beside the wheel bearing, and with the handle of the screwdriver, I want to basically seal up or put pressure to the inside of my ear, and the vibration is going to go through the pry bar. If you got a stethoscope, you can use that. Some people like the stethoscope. I like the pry bar method. So put it there, and I can hear a real good growly noise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the mic and I'll take the end off and see if you can hear it through the mic. I'm guessing you can. We'll find out. If you got to loosen an axle shaft nut and you don't have a ugga-dugga machine, so you don't have an impact, get a screwdriver, put it through the fins and the brake rotor, through the caliper, and that'll hold the hub from spinning. And there you go. You crack that loose, and you can do the same thing to torque it up. To help crack these loose, if they're too tight for you to get them busted, so just get a wrench. I like to have the bend angled past the pivot point, so towards you, and just use the throat of a dead blow and crack them loose like that. Now it's easy to take off. If you're trying to pull the rotor off and it's stuck to the hub, just thread on one of the lug nuts so it's going to catch it, keep it from hitting the ground, and then just take your dead blow, give it a love tap from the back. There you go. A couple things you want to do before we can try getting this hub off. We have the axle nut off, but there's still some splines in here. We want to make sure that this is loose to that, but we don't want to damage the threads on the end of the axle shaft. So I'll show you a trick to do that. The other thing is we have 3 nuts or bolts, I guess, on the back side, one here, one there, and one on the bottom on the other side. We got to wrench those off because there's not really enough room with the axle shaft in place. So first off, let's push this thing back and get it loose. We're going to try first with a dead blow. If that doesn't work, then I'll show you that little trick. Okay, let's see if it moves with the dead blow. Yep, winner, winner, chicken dinner. The other thing you could have done, if that didn't move, is you could have threaded on the axle nut. So get that even with the end of the axle, and then you had a wider surface to hit with the hammer, and you're not going to round those threads in. But we got lucky, axle moved for us. So like I said, you can't get an impact in there, so we're going to use our little wrench trick with the dead blow to crack them loose. There we go. 1. 2. And then I get to the third one. You gotta turn the steering. There we go. Now I can wrench it off. So now, got the 3 bolts loose. I'm going to go get an Allen key, and we're going to pull the ABS sensor off. It comes with a new sensor, but it's easy just to undo it from the hub assembly right here and pop it off. Now we got all the bolts off. We've got the ABS sensor out. We got the axle nut off, but these flanges are going to be rusted and kind of seized in that spindle or steering knuckle. So we got our 3-pound mini sludge here. We're going to give it some persuasion. Now it doesn't really matter if we beat the snot out of this flange because the wheel bearing's fucked anyway. So now's a chance to get some aggression out. Oh, look at that. Came out pretty easy, actually. We are lucky. Usually that's a pretty serious fight. You can actually feel the roughness of the bearing rotating it. Now, I find that it is worth your while to take some sandpaper or files or whatever you got, clean out the rust on the inside of the hub, and I'll also paint the new bearing and then that surface once it's cleaned with some anti-seize before the new one goes in. And if we ever have to take this apart down the road, it makes it that much easier. So let's get to it. Boy, this box has been previously enjoyed. Jeez. There is our new bearing with wheel speed sensor. Some anti-seize on the axle splines. Careful, don't scratch your nose, you're going to look like the Tin Man. I'm going to put some on the hub. Don't forget the dust shield. That's shitty when you forget. Wheel speed sensor is going to go through that hole in the shield. Now we're going to take our bolts. We're going to get those started, all 3 of them, before we tighten any one of them. Otherwise, you'll find that the other 2 are probably tough or impossible to line up after the fact. Can't find a hole. Story of my life. Okay, started. So we tighten up the 3. Then we're going to get our speed sensor swapped out. We are going to tighten our axle nut. For that, we'll put the brake rotor back on, the caliper back on. We'll hold it with our screwdriver, and then we'll tighten the big axle nut to spec. For the ABS sensor, there's just a little bracket that bolts off the ball joint. That one's a little rusty. Come on. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. There's the old one. Now, we can just use our trim tool, pop that out of the frame. Just a 2-pin connector, so we can save this as a spare because there was nothing wrong with it. And the new one just runs up here, plug it into the connector, and clip it into the frame just the same way the old one came out. There we go. So I think there's another bracket supposed to be, but I don't know, I don't see it, so we'll probably just zip tie this up and out of the way, up over there. All that's left is torquing the axle nut. For that, I got to look up the spec. Alrighty, so we looked up our torque spec. It is 103 foot-pounds. Now, some people just run this in with an impact gun. I don't like to do that because I just spent money on a brand new bearing. I don't want to damage the rollers or the bearing races. I guess I could even just run it in till I took up all the clearance on the threads, but whatever. Oh, there we go. Definitely do not tighten it with the impact, because you'll just bugger up your brand new bearing. And over torquing the axle nut will damage the end on the CV housing. There you go. Put the wheel back on, torque the lug nuts. Wheel bearing problem fixed.